Good morning, folks. Good morning, and welcome to another beautiful day at Emerson. I'm happy to see all of you. I hope you had a chance to mix and mingle in our sanctuary, in our gathering space a little bit. We have been working diligently on getting the monitors back going in there and getting the sound back going in there. So you might have heard some things this morning you shouldn't have heard. We're working on it. But we are happy to have that running back again, and after a quick dress rehearsal, we'll have it up and running for good. We are sparsely populated this morning here at Emerson. I believe that has something to do with it being Eclipse Eve, right? What is it? What would it be? What would the day before an eclipse be? Eclipse Eve? Pre-eclipsia? Probably not right.
A full moon over central Texas?
A full moon, well, it's not a full moon, is it? It's no moon. Oh, no, it's a full moon. I don't know. I really don't care. So it's a full moon blocking out the sun in the middle of the day. And for that, you can rent a house for $8 million to go watch it. So I know there are a lot of people going to see it, and it's a very exciting time. Our next one coming through here, we said what, was 40 years? 40 years. In 2044. Okay, I'll pencil me in. I'd also like to say thank you to everybody who came and everybody who helped last night with the Circle Dinners Kickstart dinner. Thank you very much to everybody who came. I think getting Circle Dinners going again here is going to be a good thing for this community. It's amazing when you look back at what we lost during Corona, right? And what we lost during Corona was one thing, but to me, what is unexpected is how much effort it takes to get that same thing going again. Like kickstarting things that we've done for years is a lot of work. So thank you to Francine and to Carol and to everybody else and to everybody who brought wonderful food. I know I'm weird, but I like potlucks because everybody brings what they think they know how to make really well, you know? So it's like, you know, like every meal you eat, there's always these wonderful things and then whatever that is. But in a potluck, there's no whatever that is. There's always all this wonderful stuff. And that's what it was last night. So I look forward to Circle Dinners starting again in September. And there's still time for people to sign up if they want to participate or host, right? So please see Carol, France, just ask someone. If you want to participate in Circle Dinners, just ask somebody. We'd love to have you. I'd like to thank Robin Sickles for being the worship associate this morning. Robin currently serves this congregation as a member of the finance committee and as a member of the nominating committee. So thank you very much, Robin, and thank you for being here this morning. And thank you to the choir. I suggested via text to the choir this week, I said, how about we play this song? And they went crazy. And between Artem and Julia picked a bunch of different songs to play for you that are pop-oriented, that go along with the thing, pop and pop rock oriented, right? Yeah, I guess Led Zeppelin's not pop. No. Maybe in a few years, right? But so we have a nice service for you today, and happy to see everybody here. And I now invite Artem to bring us into our sacred part of our service this morning.
As we gather in community, we look within ourselves and to each other for strength, restoration, and inspiration, so that as we journey together, we catch the spark of the eternal Spirit, and from that spark, we light our chalice flame. Lighting the chalice flame symbolizes to all that the spirit of our congregation is strong, and that our will to transform ourselves and the world is also strong. We light the flame with gratitude. We light the flame in memory of all who have gone before, in honor of all who are here now, and with joy for all who are yet to come. As Ruth Walensky lights our chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle or chalice of your own. Today we hear words from our second source and deeds of prophetic people. These words come from American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman Frederick Douglass. Thank you, Ruth. Douglass was born into slavery in 1817 Maryland, escaped and went on to become one of the most important leaders of the movement for African American civil rights in the 19th century. Please join me in reading these words together as they appear on your screen. I prefer to be true to myself, even at the hazard of incurring the ridicule of others, rather than to be false and incur my own abhorrence. As we work to create beloved community, we welcome all who would join us in building a better world with more love, more justice, and more peace. We welcome all who would join us in growing in mind, heart, and spirit. We welcome all who would join us in tearing down systems of oppression of all kinds. We welcome all who would join their purposes to ours in a loving spirit of right relationship. Please join me in our welcoming. Again, the words are on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here.
It is important that we acknowledge that our history is a shared and often harmful history. Our congregation's buildings are situated on the home of the Karankawa and the Atakapa peoples who lived here for at least 2,000 years before European settlers arrived and very nearly brought about their end. May we recognize, uplift, and support indigenous voices and communities here in the Houston area and in our work as a congregation. Each time we are gathered, we hear the words of one of our 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. Today, we hear the words of Reverend Kenneth Patton. Reverend Patton was an American who lived in the early part of the 20th century, dying in 1994. He was a minister and he was a poet. He is said to have taught a monotone rationalism how to sing. It is he who taught a stumble-footed humanism how to dance, and it is he who cried, "Look," and taught our eyes to see the glory of the ordinary. Here are his words for your consideration this morning. We are all things, all persons, full and famished, good and bewildered, sly and honest, frightened and less frightened, killer and slain, the rapturer and the enraptured, the youth and the age, the male and the female, the baby and the corpse, We are all things, tree and flower, moss and grass, mammal and reptile, bird and insect. The creature that is life is apart from nothing that lives. And now, with our chalices lit and our hearts and our minds centered, I invite you to help us celebrate by singing a hymn. You may stand if you are comfortable doing so, or you may stay seated, whatever you like. We just ask that you help us with this hymn. Our opening hymn is The Oneness of Everything, and we will be singing verses 1 and 3 only. Okay? I really like that hymn. I don't think I'd ever heard that hymn before. Do you like that hymn? Had you heard that hymn? We got to put that in, I thought it was, we got to put that into regular, you guys like that hymn? We'll sing it a little more. No, I'm going to want a Metza, no. Oh, I like that hymn. Okay. And here we are at our children's story, our Time for All Ages. And this is a very old book called The Parable of the Lily. So this part of the service talks to the same topic as the rest of the service, but in a different way. So this is The Parable of the Lily, and is written by Liz Curtis Higgs, and it was written in 1997. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, 1986. One wintry day, The farmer's young daughter shuffled through the snow, headed for the mailbox at the end of the lane. Brr, it was cold. She peered inside the mailbox and found a small white envelope. Surprise! It was addressed to her. Dear Maggie, the letter began, I am sending you a very special gift. Look for it soon. Maggie loved getting presents, especially a gift as mysterious as this one. When would it come? Who was it from? What would it be? The farmer's daughter waited and waited, some days patiently, some days not so patiently. Then, one very ordinary afternoon, a box appeared on her doorstep. The gift had arrived. The farmer watched as his daughter excitedly tore off the wrapping paper. He was eager to see what she thought of her present. But Maggie didn't say a word. She just stared at the small wooden crate full of dirt. Dirt was not at all what Maggie had hoped for. Poking out of the soil was a small piece of paper that told Maggie how to care for her gift. Hide in a cool, dark place, water as needed. When spring comes, bring it into the light. Then she knew it must be a growing thing, like a bulb that would one day become a plant. Oh dear, her long-awaited gift wasn't a toy or a doll or a game after all. The farmer could see that his daughter was very disappointed, and his heart grew sad because the gift was from him. With a sigh, Maggie carried the box down the steps to the darkest corner of the cellar and left it there on a shelf. You don't know what cellars are. Place under the house where the stuff goes. Sometimes she remembered to water it, but most of the time Maggie just plain forgot. The farmer did not forget. He waited and he watched. Spring came at last. The air was warmer and the gray skies had melted into robin's egg blue. What a welcome sight the sun was. It was time for the farmer to hoe his garden, getting the soil ready for the seeds that had filled his pockets. And that's what he did. And over the summer and the spring, the spring came, and Maggie woke up earlier than usual one morning. A warm breeze blew through her bedroom window, and the chirping birds seemed to be calling her name. Still dressed in her nightgown, Maggie tiptoed out to the garden. She was hoping to find some daffodils or tulips to decorate the table for Easter breakfast. That's when she saw the loveliest lily that God ever made was blooming on the edge of her father's flower garden. Its white petals unfolded like a trumpet. Its leaves were green with new life. Its scent was fragrant as the most expensive perfume. Maggie knew all at once what had happened. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry or shout with joy. Wake up, everybody, wake up. Come see, the gift is alive. Her family hurried out to the garden. They couldn't believe their eyes. Such beauty from such an ugly box of dirt. Maggie noticed that the father, standing in the doorway, quietly watching, his smile gave away his secret. Father, it was you who gave me the lily, Maggie squealed with delight. Suddenly, her little girl smile began to fade. Oh dear. She'd thrown it away and forgotten about it instead of saying thank you. That must have hurt. I'm sorry, Daddy, she said, putting her little arms around his big waist. Will you ever forgive me? Oh, child, the farmer whispered her tight. I've already forgiven you. And that's our story for this morning. I would now like to invite Robin to bring us into our offertory.
Not sure in what sense we can compete with Zeppelin, but I'll give it a try. Emerson collects an offering each week, like many other communities of faith, but our Offering is not for our church, which is supported by the annual pledges of our members. We collect our Sunday offering to give to others because we know that giving is both a transformative spiritual act and an important way to live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to our April's Share the Plate recipient, Citizens Climate Lobby. Citizens Climate Lobby is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, grassroots advocacy climate change organization focused on national policies to address the national and global climate crisis. By building upon shared values rather than partisan divides and empowering our supporters to work in keeping with the concerns of their local communities, they work towards the adoption of fair, effective, and sustainable climate change solutions. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go to Interfaith Ministries, Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering basket, or mail a check to the church. During the offering music, children who want to attend their RE class may follow Francine and Sherry to their classrooms.
Thank you. I would like to introduce this morning a ritual that I've seen in many other congregations that we're going to do today while Artem plays Stairway to Heaven, right? Stairway to Heaven. So one of the rituals that I've seen in a lot of congregations is a ritual called Joys and Concerns, which you don't do here, but that's okay. We're going to try it today. So what I invite you to do is, as you sit and as you think about the things that are going on in your life, I'm sure you are considering things that are joys and things that are concerns that weigh on your heart. I invite you to come, and if you don't have to do this, but if you are carrying around with you a joy, or if you are carrying around with you a concern that you would like to breathe into the air, breathe into this congregation, or in the case of some concerns, to put down, to let go. I invite you to come, and you can take a candle. This is the normal candle table that's always over there. We're just ritualizing it. Come, light a candle, and I'm going to light a candle right now for someone I know, and just insert it here. And the light from this will be the joys and the concerns and the heartfelt feelings that are in this room today. And we'll do this in place of a meditation today. So as you come to put offerings in the plate, if you feel comfortable, come and take part in this service. The only thing I would recommend that you do, and this is a purely logistical thing, and I don't want to ruin the moment, but start by putting your candles in the middle, because if you put them around the edges, someone will burn themselves trying to put their candle down. Been there, done that, seen that. So come, light your candle from the chalice flame, and then just celebrate your joy or your concern with us here in the room today. And if you're at home and can't participate, if you're with us on YouTube, please feel free to light a candle of your own, and we will hold that candle here with us the best we can. my friends, these joys and these concerns that live here with us this morning, these are the lifeblood of this congregation. They are the wind that fills its lungs, they are the blood that runs through its veins, and they are the marrow that fill its bones. Let us celebrate their presence here and in our lives as we move forward in our days together. And now I invite Robin to bring our second reading.
The words for our second reading today is a Navajo chant. The Navajo, although they refer to themselves as the Dene, meaning the people, are a First Nations group who have lived in what is now the southwest United States for 800 years. I would ask you to respond to my statement or my reading. I will read a small set of words. You will respond. And your response is supposed to be, I become part of it. So let's check it out and see if you can stay with me on this. For example, music rocks the soul because
I become part of it.
Well done. The mountains.
I become part of it.
The herbs, the fir tree.
I become part of it.
The morning mists, the clouds, the gathering waters.
I become part of it.
The wilderness, the dewdrops, the pollen.
I become part of it.
So we're going to talk about heaven today. And I know that needs a little introduction here in this church, so I'd like to do that. We've all been, I don't know about all of us, but most of us are very aware of the use of heaven, right? Heaven can be a pretty manipulative thing. If you just do what I say you should do, I can't do anything about the fact that you were dealt a bad hand here in life, but one day we'll all be taken care of. And we know that that feels manipulative to us. And yet, at the time we lose someone, there is a sense of comfort about the possibility that this actually exists and that this is a thing that we can rely on. Heaven is something that needs some translation for us, right? So let me see if I can help you a little bit in the translation, in this good place, right? So depending on what you do here on earth, you either end up in the good place or in the bad place, or if you're Catholic, there's a couple places in the middle, but that's okay. So you end up at either the waiting room, the good place, or the bad place, right? Okay. But what is the good place? You know, and there's so many things that people talk about when they talk about the good place. Is it the feelings of the people that you leave behind toward you? Is it literally a place where people go? Is it, you know, where the roads are paved with marshmallows or whatever they're paved with? What is it? And the simplest thing that I come up with when I think about heaven is it's having lived an ethical life. If you've lived an ethical life, if you've lived a moral life, maybe there is a good place that you'll end up in. And I think that that's okay to hold out that hope, or to run your life in such a way that ethics and morals are good. Because ethics and morals are good things to have, right? We like to have them. What I'm talking about here today is the complexity that goes along with these ethics and these morals. And I'm going to talk to you about a television program that ran from 2016 to 2020. It was called The Good Place. And I think I have a slide here in case you didn't see it. It ran on NBC. No slide? Oh, that's okay. There we go. So it ran on, has anybody ever seen this television program? Yes? Okay. It's a very interesting television program because it was structured like a sitcom. It was a half an hour, and it was moderately funny. But it dealt with serious ethical and moral and religious questions, and it dealt with them in a very funny way. I'm not going to give away any of the premises to it. It's running, if you have Netflix, you can watch it for free. It ran for 4 seasons, and it was one of those interesting shows that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? It didn't just stop. It ended. It was, an ending was written into it. So anyway, it was Ted Danson and Kristen Bell. Those are the 2 famous people, and then a bunch of people you've never heard of. It was an ensemble cast, I guess is what you call it. And it dealt with some pretty important things. It dealt with philosophy, theology, philosophy of religion. It dealt with life questions. It dealt with religious questions, and it especially dealt with ethics. There was one scene that was an enacting of the trolley experiment. I don't know, I'll talk about the trolley experiment later. But the scene was that the whole show was about talking about the trolley experiment, which is kind of cool, right? On a sitcom. And they managed to make the trolley experiment funny, which in and of itself, they should have gotten something for. One of the philosophical consultants on the program, there were 2 philosophical consultants. One was a Unitarian Universalist. Well, he still is. One is a Unitarian Universalist. He was a professor at Clemson, and his name is David May. If you could go to the next slide, that's David May. Todd May, sorry, David May sitting right there. Todd May was a member at my home congregation in Greenville, South Carolina, and he would come and he would give these wonderful Sunday morning classes like we have here, and I have to be honest with you, I wasn't sure what he was talking about half the time. But he's a wonderful guy. He's now up at Warren Wilson outside of Charlotte, outside of Asheville. So that's Todd May. He was a philosophical consultant on this program, The Good Place. You also know that the Barbie movie was written and produced by a UU, right? Have you seen that yet? No? Written and produced like it was their idea, okay? So in a way, The Good Place is kind of the closest thing we have to a UU television program. It's probably the closest thing we're ever going to have to a UU television program. So the underlying premise here of the program, and I have to give away this little thing, but the underlying premise of the program is because of the complexity of the world, it is virtually impossible to get into the good place. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, okay? All right, so let's look at this underlying premise. And I just want to do a quick survey, show of hands. How many of you think that adults should drink milk? Show of hands. How many of you think that adults should definitely not drink milk? Show of hands. Oh, so about the same number of you think that adults should drink milk and that shouldn't drink milk. Ambiguity, right? How about Dollar General stores? Are Dollar General stores good for society or are they bad for society? How many of you think that Dollar General store, I'm not signaling out that brand, there's a whole bunch of brands that are the same thing. How many of you think these dollar stores are good things for society? And how many of you think they are bad things for society? So about the same number of you think that Dollar General stores are good things for society, and think that they are bad things for society. Now I'm going to hit a real nerve because I'm going to hit the classic example of this argument, which is going to hit a nerve with some of you. I love you. It's okay. You can relax. The Toyota Prius. Good thing or bad thing? Right? Yeah, everybody, yeah, I'm abstaining too. I'm not sure. But so back in the middle 2000s, when the Prius came out, this was a philosophical discussion. Are they good or are they bad? Is the savings on the emissions and the reduction in the gasoline consumption, does it offset the problems with creating the battery? And you will see people here, you can't see you, but I can. There's as many of you saying this as there are saying this, right? So this is that ambiguity that is so problematic. And this is the focus of the show, right? The focus of the show is basically, well, you bought a Prius because you thought you were doing a good thing, but guess what? Ha-ha, you were wrong. It was actually a bad thing, and now you get to go to hell because of it. So this reflects back on our principle, the interdependent web, right? Everything really is interconnected. And the interconnection, when you read about it in the principles, you're like, oh, everything's interconnected. Isn't that nice? But the more you think about it, the fact that everything is interconnected really makes decision-making quite difficult. So, milk, environmental impact, health impact, humane treatment of animals impact, Dollar General stores, financial impact, employment impact, exploitive capitalism impact. How are you supposed to act? How are you supposed to make decisions and act in your life if people who know these things don't even know these things? Right? So this whole notion of the simplistic sort of view of heaven and hell, the good place, the bad place, and if you're Catholic, the waiting room, this whole notion of if you just do the right thing while you're alive, you get rewarded with a good place, and if you just don't do the right thing while you're alive, well, you lose. This is almost untenable in our current culture. It's way too simple for us to operate under, right? So, my basic question here is, how are you to be blamed for all this complexity? Now, let me just say about the complexity. It's easy to stand behind the complexity and go, well, I guess I don't have to worry about anything. I can just do what I want, right? So we are not talking about, when we talk about this complexity, we are not talking about standing behind willful ignorance. We are not talking about standing behind plausible deniability, a politician's favorite. We are not standing behind rationalization. We are not standing behind deliberate intransigence. These things that I just mentioned, these are ethical failures. Choosing to do things because they're right for you, that's an ethical failure. And we get down to the key word here is choose, right? The problem, I think, with the Good Place television program is that it focuses on impact. It focuses on what you do and the impact of what you do, and it ignores the other thing, the thing that actually is, I think, equally important, your intention. Did you do what you did for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons? Now, we can't look at impact because impact is so complex. It's so difficult to work at impact. I mean, there's some direct impact things. If I try to trip you and you trip, well, That's very direct impact. But living a life is not that simple. So I think the problem with the good place is that it ignores intention. And I think that the problem with all of these views of the good place versus the bad place over time are that they ignore intention. And I do think that intention is important. As a matter of fact, at the time you take an action, intention is really the only thing you can control at that time. Right? When I first heard someone say that, I rejected it. And the reason I rejected it was because I could run and hide behind it. I felt like it could be an excuse. But I don't think that's dishonest intention, right? If your intention is honest, and if you've taken some information, so if you've bought a Toyota Prius, for example, I'm sure you've read about them before you buy them, right? You've done some information gathering, and you've made a decision, and your intention was to do the right thing somehow, however you define about doing the right thing. Who knows whether they're good or bad? Who knows whether shopping at Dollar General is good or bad? You can't tell. It's so unfathomably complex. So what can you tell? You can tell what you were thinking when you did it, can't you? And that's really all you can tell. So I offer that to you today. Complexity makes intention even more important than it was before. Complexity essentially renders you powerless in a lot of cases about the impact that you have. Complexity limits, but does not limit your ability to seek knowledge. In other words, some things are so complex that you can keep reading milk. You can keep reading about milk. How many things can you read about milk? And you could probably find 50% of them say, absolutely, definitely drink as much milk as you can, and the other 50% say, don't ever drink milk. So the only thing you're left with is intention. So I want to talk about the trolley experiment for a second. Can we go to the next slide? Do you know the trolley? How many of you have some indication of the trolley experiment? Okay. So here's the trolley experiment. You have a trolley, so you can tell about when this was written, right? There's trolleys involved. You have a Prius. No, I'm kidding. You have a trolley. It's coming down the track. There are 5 people in harm's way. On one track, there's 1 person in harm's way on the other track, and you're the guy in the middle, or woman, you're the person in the middle with the ability to pull the lever. So you have a choice. You can kill 1 person, or you can kill 5. And this is the argument. This argument is. Have you ever been in a discussion about the trolley experiment? Because it just does not stop. It just keeps going and going and going. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? The trolley experiment is the greatest example, I think, of intention. So the only thing I think you can ask here from a religious standpoint is, what is your intention when you pull or don't pull that lever? Right? There are all kinds of variations of this. The single person up there is someone you don't like. Now, what is your intention, whether you pull or pull? The single person up there is an evil person. Affix any name you want to that person up there. The 5 people down here, they're your family, right? So it tries to make it personal. It tries to pull you off of the pure ethical argument and add other color into it. You can keep going with this argument, but here's what I would say. Here's what I ask you to consider. And what I ask you to consider is, what's your intention when you pull or don't pull that lever? Did you do it because it was good for you? Did you do it because it was good for some number of these 6 people? Or did you do it because it was good for the world If your focus is on good, then I think you've made a decision that, at least hypothetically, if there were a good place, I would like to say would get you into the good place. If you pulled that lever because it was good for you, I don't like that guy, then I think you've made a moral and ethical error. All agree? So where does that leave us? If intention is really all you have at the moment you take an action, where does that leave us? Look back at the way we framed heaven, at the way we framed the good place for millennia. That's not the way we framed it for millennia. So where does that leave us? Is it even possible to live a moral and ethical life in a complex structure like the one we live in? My answer to you would be, or my answer for you to consider would be yes. It is possible for us to live a moral and ethical life despite the complexity. We must do our due diligence to make sure that we're not acting out of apathy. We must do our due diligence to make sure that we're not acting out of greed. But as long as we are acting in a way that is not self-serving, I think it is still possible, despite the premise that The Good Place, the television show, puts upon you. And the premise that it puts upon you is, don't worry, you can't do it anyway. I think worry. Consider morals, consider options, consider morality. It is still possible. And that, I think, is good news, right? It is still possible. It is possible to live a good life despite milk and Prius and Dollar General stores. It is. We can do it. And one of the important ways that we can do it is to talk to each other, to get information from each other. Because one of the things you must do to make a decision is you must have some idea of the impact of what you're doing. You can't just walk around forgetting about impact, but you should try to at least attain some level of knowledge of the impact in your intention. So that was a little bit of a moral story, a little bit of an ethical story. I feel like I've bored and or lost many of you. But if you're standing at, so if you want an interesting conversation, imagine you're standing at that lever. You have the option of pulling it or not pulling it. What's the right answer? Either way, someone dies. What's the right answer? Have that conversation at lunch today. Maybe after lunch. But have the conversation. I think it's one of the reasons we're here in a religious community together. So I invite you into that conversation, and I invite the choir to bring us into our second hymn, which is one of our favorite hymns, Let It Be a Dance.
Through the good times and the bad times too.
Each time we come together, we move. Some days more than others. We move with the words we hear, we move with the music, and we move with the light of the chalice, which, like us, dances, yet stays tethered to its source. We extinguish this chalice now. I invite Ruth, would you like to? We extinguish this chalice now, not as a ritual symbol, but as a practical symbol. We do this because the flickering and fluttering light of this chalice and this congregation is carried with each of us present, those not present today, and those who left this community long ago, and those who have yet to arrive. We are so grateful for your presence this morning. For those of you who've joined us on YouTube, thank you very much. We're happy to have you here. After the postlude, we will end our streaming service today, and we look forward to hosting you again soon. Thank you to everybody here with us. And I invite you now to hear a final benediction for today. May we, in the course of our week to come, be able to feel the liberating freedom of this religious path we share. May our gods welcome us. May they challenge us to live up to our own expectations of ourselves, whatever and wherever they are. And may the world around us light up so that we may see our way to clarity and wholeness. Amen.